world, YouTube. How are you all doing? Right now, I'm in the middle of detoxing, taking a light bath. And it's a beautiful day for that. Getting sunlight through my skin, all through my body, and through my eyes. Just fully saturating myself with light. And it feels amazing. And I think that's really important nowadays, considering what's going on. This big thing in the world, this big news. And I don't want to call it by name too much and give it extra power and strength. That's why I'm calling it other things besides the label that we all know it as. And I think this is really, really, really important, doing this, being out in nature, having a relationship with the sun. It's even more important now. 'Cause for me, I consider it the ultimate detox. To me, this is more important than taking a bath or a shower. To me, this is hygiene. This keeps me clean. And we all know that it builds your immune system. It gives your DNA the instructions for how to express itself, for your body to know how to express itself. And also, of course, it tells your immune system what to do. It educates your immune system. Light is information. Sunlight is information. Okay, so enough preaching. And that's about the only thing that I'll preach about, light, because it's such a beautiful gift that we take for granted. So, what am I going to talk about in this video? Originally, I didn't want to touch this topic because I think that everyone is focusing on it, and even they're talking about this topic a little bit too much, giving it too much power. But then I kept thinking about it, and I realized that it would be a great platform to talk about some bigger ideas, some bigger things, some more important things, some bigger picture ideas. A platform. And I'm not saying that this situation should be just looked over and not be taken seriously, because the people that are suffering, my heart goes out to you. And I respect anyone's pain. But I want to put it all in perspective for everyone, the greater whole. So what I'm going to talk about here is I'm going to lay out the present situation in the world today. Right now it's March 28th for me, and we know what's going on. We know the big topic in the news, in the world, because likely it's affecting the majority of us. Well, in a lot of places, not everywhere. Some places aren't getting hit as hard, particularly the places with or the places that make it easy to have a strong relationship with the sun. And I'll kind of go into that a little bit later more. But I'm going to talk about this topic from a physical, a mental, and spiritual point of view. The physical point of view, I'm going to try to stick to just straight raw data and facts and putting this in perspective and talking about it. And I'm not going to just tell you that you should not worry about it. I mean, I'm not worrying about it, and I won't worry about it no matter what happens. But I just want to lay it out and put a real, more coherent picture of this out versus what you'll get on the news, which is just basically promoting fear. I mean, they're trying to get the news out to the people, to educate the people so that everyone knows what's going on. They're informed and they're working as a team. At least I hope that's what their goal is and what they're doing. So I understand what they're trying to do, but some of their actions, I think, are kind of irresponsible in the way that they're doing it. In them either not knowing or knowing and not caring about the way people would take this information, react to it, and run with it. And I'm also going to talk about this from a mental perspective, an information perspective. So physical, mental, which in that part I'm going to talk about things like conspiracy theories. Yeah, so I'm going to discuss a few conspiracy theories, so take that for what it's worth. It may be worth a lot, it may not be worth anything, but let's talk about it. I'm not scared of it. And lastly, I'm going to end the video by talking about this from a spiritual or astrological. I'm going to talk a little bit about astrology and like what's going on and how it coincides with everything that's been happening for this eventful year, 2020. Super eventful. So many surprises this year, and I'm trying not to let it just overwhelm me and take my life over. I realize that this is just another part of life, in that you get tested in life to see what you're gonna do, and the tests don't define us. What defines us is how we react to the test, how we do the test. And I'm going to enjoy this test no matter how it plays out, no matter what grade I'm getting in this test. So how about we get started in talking about this? Let's take a look at this logically and objectively. I'm about to show you some charts, some statistics, some facts. Well, some generally accepted facts in regards to this. And let's come to our own conclusion. Take a look at this. This is from a quick Google search. After reading this, it appears to be like a stronger version of the flu. But let's go deeper. Here's a chart of our daily worldwide death rate. It's at around 27,000. It looks pretty high. But let's see how this compares to other similar occurrences that have happened over the past couple of decades. So how fast does this spread? According to this chart, here are a couple other competitors, two other coronaviruses from the past. Do you remember MERS and SARS? Yeah, SARS was back in 2003, and it infected its first 1,000 people in 130 days. MERS, it happened around 5 years ago, and it affected its first 1,000 people in about 2.5 years. Now, this present situation that we have now, it infected its first 1,000 people in 48 days. So, from this, we can take that as highly contagious. Okay, same type of chart, but this focuses on fatality rate. As you can see, MERS, it's the deadliest. It kills 17 of every 50 people that it infected. SARS, it killed 5 of every 50 people that it infected. And this present situation, it kills 1 person for every 50 it infects. And what can we take from this? Is that this is not that fatal when you compare it to these past couple of situations that have happened over the past couple of decades. And these are just two of the most prevalent ones that are quite similar to the situation that we have now. Now, let me show you more about who this is actually most fatal to. Specifically, who is most fatal to. And this picture shows pre-existing conditions, different types. And according to this, the pre-existing condition that puts you at risk the most, given that you even catch this in the first place, is if you have cardiovascular disease. And according to this, you have a 13.2% chance of dying if you have this pre-existing condition. And of course, there's a list of other pre-existing conditions. Take a look at them. Here's another chart of how this situation discriminates based on age. As you can see, the most at-risk group based on age is people over 80. And each decade, you have less of a risk and less of a risk, and it tapers off at around 30 years old, under 40. And yes, it even discriminates by sex. According to this, men are twice as likely to die than women are. How about we compare this situation to the common flu? If you take a look at this chart, it shows that the flu infects 9% of the world population. That's about 1 billion people. And it kills from 300,000 to a little bit over 600,000 people per year. That's a lot of people, but the actual rate is a pretty low rate. And if you compare the present situation to the common flu's rate is less than 1%, but this present situation's rate is about 5%. And yeah, I know, I guess the scary part is this present situation is brand new, and I guess the biggest concern, we don't have immunity for it. That's the thought I think that's going around, that's generating fear. Now, let's compare this present situation to some of the past situations that have popped up every few years over the past couple of decades. If you take a look here, this is from the beginning of the millennium, 2002. SARS. with SARS, there were 8,000 cases and about 7 to 800 people died from it. And it had a 15% death rate. This present situation has a 5% death rate. So it had a higher death rate, but not nearly as many infections. So if you compare this situation to that situation, this situation seems more of a problem. So now let's take it to 2009, back when H1N1 hit. Let's compare H1N1 to the present situation now. With H1N1, it infected about a quarter of the world. And it killed about 250,000 people. However, the death rate was 0.02, still pretty low. The death rate for this present situation is 5%, but we're nowhere near the amount of deaths or cases yet. And this present situation will likely be contained. I mean, some places they're already containing it. So it's looking like it will be contained pretty soon, and it won't reach this proportion. Only thing that this has more of than this is the death rate. The death rate is higher. 5% for this present situation and 0.02% for the 2009 H1N1. Y'all remember around 2013 when Ebola broke out? Wasn't that crazy? It's like, how? But here's how this measures up to the situation now. And it doesn't even really compare. They contain this pretty well based on the numbers I'm looking at. But according to this, there were a bit over 28,000 global cases and 11,000 deaths. And this has a 50% fatality rate. Like if you got it, there's a 50% chance you would die. So really, I just threw this one in here just to throw it in. But I mean, it did happen 2013, and it ended around 2016. But yeah, that's Ebola. As I began thinking, trying to figure out maybe why this was all happening, one of the things that I did was look at a map to try to find some type of pattern or see who's tied to who, and maybe that would lead me into knowing better about what's going on. And I didn't really find anything. If you look at this map, the area around Russia's area hasn't had a major impact on it. And the continent of Africa, there doesn't seem to be like a huge impact on it. So I kind of wondered, like, what's special or what's different about these two areas, the area of Russia and Africa. And I was thinking, like, is it their region? Do they have less technology? Is there more nature? Are they underreporting? A lot of things ran through my mind, but of course, no answers. Here's a close-up version of the same map, but this is the Asia part. And what I just didn't mention earlier was about Australia. It seems to be somewhat spared as well as Africa and the Russia areas. And here's a close-up of Europe and Africa. And here's a close-up of North and South America. Why is all of this happening? I'm about to show you the story that was fed to us, well, my version of it, and even some rumors. They say this whole thing started in a city called Wuhan, China. And when I first heard about it, I think like a lot of people, I just didn't buy it. I didn't really believe it. Thought it was just something that would just come and go. But it stuck around. And the story kept getting weirder. Like, for example, they say the origin of it was people were eating bats. And the story kept getting weirder and more complicated. For example, at the market where they say the virus originated from the people eating bats, 20 miles away from that market were like facilities, that labs that created or bred or whatever they do to the viruses in order to make them, and maybe there was some type of leak. I'm gonna need y'all to put on your conspiracy theory seatbelts because it's about to get real conspiracy theoretical. Now, one really popular conspiracy theory, or maybe even infamous, is the 5G conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theorists say that at the end of 2019 was around the time when 5G extensively rolled out in that area, in Wuhan, triggering health problems with the people, and maybe even triggering this situation that we have now. Now, even to me, this seems like a stretch, but what do I know? Because I'm not even really up on what exactly 5G is and how exactly it affects us. I've been informed on it over the past 5 years that it's not a good thing, and it's something that we're gonna have to fight in the future to keep it from escalating and, destroying us or just devolving us. But that's 5G. Another really peculiar thing that happened leading up to all of this was that last year, 2019, a bunch of CEOs and big name executives, they say over 1,300, suddenly kind of stepped down all at the same time, all around the same time. And one of the most notable of these people was Mr. Gates. Yeah, Mr. Gates, who stepped down last month, March or February, this year, 2020. And another peculiar thing about him, Mr. Gates, was that 5 years ago, he seems to have prophesized this whole thing. He did like a TED talk talking about the things that are happening right now. Like some huge biological threat that would replace like war or any other big danger that could threaten humankind and our future. Okay, so even if you want to just completely look past all of the conspiracy theory stuff, there's still some other stuff that is pretty hard to ignore that makes you question the times and what's going on nowadays. And some examples of these types of things are there's quite a few pop culture things that happen in pop culture that seem to prophesize what's going on today. But one of the most interesting and one of the strangest is this book by Dean Koontz, The Eyes of Darkness. And why this is one of the strangest is because this book, which was written in 1981, goes into detail about what's happening today. And it even refers to the city where all of this originated. The book talks about that. It talks about the illness and describes it being a virus, and it goes into detail and explains a lot of what's happening. Here's an article that summarizes and breaks down what I just got finished talking about a whole lot better than I can. So take a moment, pause the video, and read this for yourself. Please check out the rest of this video in a part 2. The link's going to be in the description below.